Good morning everybody. Today I will discuss on market mechanism, and this is related to the introductory macroeconomics and intermediate macroeconomics for semester 2, 1 and 3. Now, before going to market mechanism, I want to say something. Market mechanism is not a simple and small one, it's a big subject. So we have to subdivide, we have to partition it 2 or 3 classes, and in this present class I will try to start and cover perfect competition as much as possible. So at the beginning I will start with the market. What is market? Now, before explaining what market and what is a market mechanism, I want to say you what is the learning outcome from this market mechanism. So first and foremost is forms of market. What are the different forms of market? Whether it is perfect competition, it is monopoly, and other market forms also. It's a perfect competitive markets, and the objective of the markets are whether it's profit maximization or it's another goal. And related to profit maximization goal, marginal cost, marginal revenue, and short run, long run, all of the concept you have already known in previous classes, where shape of the cost function, shape of the marginal revenue, marginal cost function are all explained. And here in this particular class, I want to explain you how the market mechanism in the perfect competitive setup and this equilibrium goes on, or from this, how the supply side of the market is partially explained. So, first and foremost thing is, what is the market? Market is an invisible institution where there is innumerable number of buyers and sellers, and their inflow and outflow of goods and services or interact with each other in order to determine the price and quantity of that market. And market equilibrium is again determined with the demand and supply intersection, as the figure given here, intersection of the demand and supply. And demand and supply here, the two player of the market. Supply side determined the supply curve, where supply side we are trying to explain how the shape of the supply curve in the firm level and in the market level also is determined, and in the demand side, consumers how behave, that will determine the demand curve, and ultimately from it we will get the market demand. And from the interaction of the market demand and market supply, you can have market price and market quantity. So here in this present class, we are trying to explain the competitive market. And now, before going to the competition and the specific form of the market, I'll try to explain you the forms of the market. So here the market structure. It may be perfect competition, it may be imperfect competition. And in the imperfect competition, there is monopolistic competition, oligopoly, monopoly, duopoly, etc. And how the markets are formed, there are few basic parameters on which the market forms are determined. So first and foremost is the number of firms. How many number of firms or player who are producer are playing or producing goods and services. And second one is ability to affect the price, how the firm affect the market price, or etc. Is there any ability of the firm to change the market price, etc. And third one is entry barrier, whether new firm or existing firm can easily enter or go out of the market, will also determine the forms of the market. So here first and foremost form of the market is the perfect competition. And in case of perfect competition, suppose we have many buyers and sellers and many sellers are selling a very small part of the supply so that they cannot influence the price of the market. So, at the extreme part of the market formation, there is perfect competition where there is many buyers and many sellers also, and they cannot, each and every individual buyer and seller cannot affect the market price as their share is so low compared to the market. And the other extreme point is monopoly, where there is only one supplier who can supply everything. So a huge number of demand even if there. So monopoly is only single firm will supply the output. So within these two extreme parts, there are many forms. It may be more than one number of firm, that is number of two, which is called duopoly, and there is monopolistic competition, huge number of buyer also, and there is oligopoly, which is few number of supplier also. So we will explain those parts one by one in different classes. Now in this class, I want to explain the perfect competition, where there is a huge number of buyer and seller who cannot influence the price, and there is no restriction to enter in the market and exit from the market. So there is no perfect competition form of the perfect competition competitive market exists in the economy, and very closest form of the perfect competition is fruit market. Now we are going for the competition. Competition, the concept which is used mainly two purposes. One, for the relativity of the firm among the firm in order to capture the market share, and second one is where it is perfectly competitive. So there is a difference between competitive market and perfectly competitive market. In the perfectly competitive market, there are many hypothetical assumptions on which the market is classified as ideality, but those assumptions are not actually valid, because suppose one example, if in the perfect competition we have no transport cost, whether a farm exists in Kolkata or exists in Delhi, they are supplying their output in Uttar Pradesh, Lucknow. So there is no transport cost difference and in transport cost between the two farms to supply this output in Lucknow. So those are the very highly unrealistic assumptions also in the perfectly competitive market. Instead of the competitive market. So, but there is a ideality, the forms of the market by which we can compare the ideality of the existence of the firm and market mechanism also. So here, two part of the competition. One is rivalry, one firm trying to capture other market, and otherly perfectly competitive firm where there is invisible hands of the hands works, but it is not really possible. But in order to know the other form of the market, what is the deviation from the ideality, we have to know the perfectly competitive system. And here, perfectly competitive market is the market which based on the following assumptions, and assumptions mainly divided into three parts. One is price taking assumption, other is product homogeneity assumption, and third is free entry and exit assumption, as earlier mentioned I have. And if we divide those three main assumptions of perfect competition, we can have both buyer and sellers are price taker. If buyer and sellers, there are a huge number of buyer and seller part of the assumption. One is price taker and product homogeneity and free entry and exit. The segregation or description of those assumptions can be based on the following. Both buyers and sellers are price taker. If there is huge number of buyers and sellers and those are priced, they cannot influence the market share. Market share is so small, the market cannot influence the market price. So they only can be price taker. And second one is number of farms is huge. Basically, the number of farms and number of barrels is huge. That's why their share is small, and that's why they cannot influence the price. There is no barrier to entry. That means there is no cost associated with the entry and exit. If farms are profit maximized, then if there is a cost to entry into the market, and if there is a cost he or she has to bear to exit from the market, then there is a entry deterrence or exit deterrence. There is a problem, or there is a cost bearing with the entry and exit. So in the perfectly competitive setup, there is no cost in entry and exit. So there is no barrier. And next one is the firm's product are identical. This is very crucial. We cannot perfectly define what is identical, but in real terms or in imaginary terms, if we distinguish anything from the two unit of product, then they cannot be identical. So in real situation, there is no identical commodity or goods or service, but here in the perfectly competitive setup, the good products are identical. One thing I should mention here, the real difference between the two, if not exist, then each and every unit of the product will give the same level of satisfaction. So here indirectly we can explain the identical product, because if there is any difference, real and imaginary also, then we cannot have the same level of satisfaction from the two unit of output of the same good. And here I can also mention that the imaginary part of the difference. Suppose I am going out from the market and I want to have some pani puri fuchka, and there are two stalls in front of this mall, and suppose I am seeing that when I am going out and want to get the pani puri, and if I see in right hand stall there are huge number of buyers, and there is the left hand stall there is no such buyers, one or two buyers only. So if I move to the left hand seller, then there are some imaginary biasness, and there is likeness that there is less crowd, so I want to go here. So this is those two stalls and two set of pani puri are not identical at all. So ideally, identical product will not be available anywhere. But in case of perfectly competitive market, we have to say products are identical. And next one is the complete information. It is also very rare, because suppose I am here and the producer is producing in say Patna, and someone is in Siliguri and I am in Calcutta. So if the information process that will disseminate the product information to Calcutta and to Siliguri at the same way, and if I got to have the information from this for this product from these two places, then it can be identical and information may be complete. But it is impossible to get complete information process in all the places, all the parts of the market. And next one, firms are profit maximized. Definitely firms may have other objectives, maybe sales maximization or profit maximization, but here in perfectly competitive situation, firms are profit maximizer. So I can explain those basic three assumptions part by part. I have already explained what is price taking behavior, and second one is product homogeneity, and third one is free entry and exit. I have already explained. Now, when are the markets called competitive? I have said all the things that are related to ideality and related to perfect competition, but when are the markets competitive? That's the basic question. So if I say there is real difference between the product and market, with very low or no cost of entry and exit, and there is a specific format of product homogeneity. So we can be the market, we can say this market is competitive, but it may not be perfectly competitive, because there is no a real identical product in the market. There is at least some entry and exit costs in the market. So there is no specific thumb rule to say whether this market is competitive or perfectly competitive. It entirely depends on the behavior of buyer and seller in the market. So we now move towards the profit maximization process of perfectly competitive firm. Here, firm is the single unit in the market. There are a lot of firms in the market, and I want to here explain firm's behavior in the perfectly competitive market setup. So here, if the firm is profit maximizer, then profit function will be total revenue minus total cost, and total revenue here is P into Q. Why? Because firms are price taker, so price is given. So the volume of revenue will depend on how much amount I will sell in the market at given price. So total revenue of the firm is nothing but is P into Q. P is fixed or given to the seller. And from the production cost, we can have also the total cost equals to C into Q, C function of Q. Why C function of Q? Because here in the C function of Q, we have many things. If it is short run, it may be long run. In the short run, there is fixed cost, there is variable cost. All are I have explained in the earlier classes, where there is theory of cost and production. And so the profit will be pi. Pi is the symbol of profit here, and function of Q is RQ, means total revenue minus CQ. So if I want to get the equilibrium of the firm and what is the amount of profit firm will earn from market, it will be from the next figure. You can see, but here if I say from the optimality theory, if we think the firm is profit maximizer, by the optimality theory, the first partial derivative of a function will give the slope of this function. And here, if we derive del pi by del q, then this is equals to del r by del q minus del c by del q. And here del r by del q is nothing but the slope of the total revenue curve, and del c by del q will be the marginal cost or slope of the total cost curve here. So here in the figure you can see that what if we if we go to previous slide, then if we have profit maximized at optimal point where there is del pi by del q equals 0 is as a stationary condition, then we must have slope of total revenue curve is just equals to slope of total cost curve, and this will show in next figure. Here what you see here, this is the pink one is the total revenue curve, which is increasing with increasing output, because here we know the price is fixed. So if I want to say I want to get more and more revenue, I have to sell more and more output. Again, the total cost curve is with the particular shape, it's inverted U shaped. Why? You know that because I have explained in the theory of cost classes, where the variability of law of production acts in terms of inverse cost function. So here the slope of the CQ, total cost function, gives the total variable cost, and the intercept of this curve is called fixed cost. And here total revenue curve starts from origin, because if you will not sell anything, your revenue is zero. Now what you see that here difference between the total revenue and total cost function is the profit, as we see in the early equation. Difference between total revenue and total cost is the profit. So here in this figure, what you see, the difference between the two is the profit. Here in the before Q0 output, cost is higher than revenue, so profit is negative. So profit function, a yellow one, is start from here, and if we increase output, the cost and revenue are closer to each other, continually closer to each other, till Q0 output increases, and profit again turns negative to zero. And after that, if we move Q0 to Q star, the gap between the two is increasing. Not only that, the profit is positive because total revenue is greater than total cost. And after Q star, the gap between the two is decreasing, even with the positive profit. And this positivity of profit will continue till the CQ and RQ closest to each other, and profit here turns to zero. And then again, cost is higher than revenue, and hence profit is negative. Now question is that where will the firm maximize the profit? Here in this figure, where is the gap between the two is maximum? Gap between total revenue and total cost is maximum. Here, where the slope of the total revenue curve and slope of the total cost curve matches to each other. They are same. As I said here in the last equation, if we get the first partial derivative for getting the maximized profit, that is the stationary point for profit function, we can have slope of the del R by del Q, which is the slope of the total revenue function, is equals to slope of the total revenue function minus slope of the total cost function, that equals to 0. And hence we have slope of the total revenue function and slope of the total cost function are same. So there is a gap between the two is maximum, and here profit is maximum. So at Q star, gap between the two is maximum, so profit is maximum. And this analysis is done only on the basis of total revenue and total cost. This can be explained in terms of marginal revenue and marginal cost. Here only problem is that here profit is the amount of profit is determined, quantity is also determined, but what should be the equilibrium price is not determined. Even we know it is fixed, because in the perfectly competitive market, price will be fixed, as buyer and seller are price taker only. So price is fixed. So, but again, what should be? This fixed amount is 4 or 5 or 6. If I want to know, then this figure will not self-sufficient to explain the equilibrium market price. Hence, we have to move for the marginal revenue and marginal cost part here in the next slide. Here we are presenting the marginal revenue and marginal cost curve to have the partial equilibrium of profit maximization, where there is equilibrium output and equilibrium price will be determined simultaneously along with the amount of profit. So here profit equals to total revenue minus total cost, and del pi by del q equals to del r by del q minus del c by del q equal to 0. Why 0? Because the stationarity of the profit function is required in order to get the optimum point. So del pi by del q equal to 0 implies mr minus mc equal to 0. That implies mr equals to mc. So where mr equals to mc, the equilibrium of the firm will occur in the perfectly competitive setup. Now we have to know what is the property of MR here in the perfectly competitive setup and what is the property of MC here. MC is normal neoclassical type MC. So we know it's a U-shaped, as we know in the earlier production cost theory. It's U-shaped, and not only that, total variable cost is also U-shaped. Total fixed cost is fixed. It's a horizontal line. So we know all about the properties of the MC. It's a U-shape. Now, what is the specification of MR in case of perfectly competitive setup? We have to know here. And those are all determined, properties of MR are determined from the assumptions of the perfectly competitive market where there is buyer and seller, there are buyer and seller are price taker. So here I have given a simple chart and the figure also in order to explain whether the equilibrium of the firm in terms of marginal revenue and marginal cost curve will be determined. So here, suppose price of a particular good is fixed in a perfectly competitive setup, which is 35 all around. And if firms are producing 0 unit, he has to bear 0 cost, 0 marginal cost. If produce 1 unit, 0 to 1 unit, he has to bear 28, etc., etc., etc. And at unit of 4, he has to bear minimum marginal cost 12. And after that, with increasing output, marginal cost is increasing. So here, in the figure, the price equals to MR. Why price equals to MR? I will explain later. Price equals to MR is a horizontal line, and this is equals to demand curve, and this is the marginal cost curve, where marginal cost curve, value of marginal cost is minimum at unit 4 to 5. So 4 to 5 minimum, and then it is increasing. And if we want to have equilibrium, then where we will get the equilibrium, as we find in the earlier slide, it is at the MR equals to MC. So here at point B, we have MR equals to MC. And so this is equilibrium. Why? Because before 8 unit of output, firms are getting positive profit. Say at unit 5, this is the amount of revenue, this is the amount of cost, marginal cost. So this at a marginal, this is marginal revenue and this is marginal cost. So gap between the two is positive. And if we move forward and if we increase quantity, then it will decreases. And at B, they are same. Again, if we move from 10 to 8, then we can have also MC is greater than MR. And if we reduce output from 10 to 9 to 8, then gap reduces, and ultimately it is the equilibrium condition MR equals to MC at B. So it's a unique equilibrium where MR equal to MC crosses each other at a single point. Now we can move to the competitive firm and competitive market. So up to now we have seen how competitive market equilibrium has happened and the equilibrium is unique. Now if we want to move from firm to market, then here all firms in the market, this is perfectly competitive market. So there is innumerable number of seller, and each and firm's output here small q, and market output is capital Q, and market demand here D, and small d is the firm demand. Here there is a specific difference between firm demand and market demand. Here firm follow horizontal demand curve. This is because Farms are price taker. So whatever farm wants to sell is always sell at fixed price, say P bar. And but for each and every fixed price, number of farm who are in the industry are selling output. So market demand curve is the summation of all farm demand at each and specific price. So definitely market demand curve is downward sloping, even the farm demand curve faced by the farm is horizontal at given price. And now we can move to farm demand to market demand. Here, this is the individual farm demand. There is innumerable number of or n number of farm in the industry, and each and every farm, say at price 7, each and every farm follow the horizontal demand curve and AR curve, MR curve, but at each and every price, say at 7 here, all farms who are in the industry are jointly supplying that amount, 2000 amount of output. And similarly, if price raises to 10, then amount sold by all firms existed in the industry will reduce. And similarly, if price is below 7, then all firm will want to supply more output together. So demand curve in the market is downward sloping. And here in the perfectly competitive setup, we are trying to derive the market supply curve from the farm supply curve. So at first, our first task is to derive the farm supply curve, and then we will go for the market supply curve. Here, in order to get the farm supply curve, which is our main objective in the analysis, farm supply curve will be derived from the cost setup of the farm. And here we are follow the neoclassical set of cost function, where there is U-shaped AC, MC and AVC curve. Hence, the market equilibrium is at 7 here, where the demand and supply of the market crosses to each other at, say, output level 2000 unit and price at rupees 7. So even farm, each and every farm follow the same demand curve, market demand curve is different, which is negatively sloped. Here we want to define some of the criteria of the farm. Here, in case of given market price, the MC curve equals to MR curve equals to AR curve. That is, the equilibrium of the farm will be at point where MR equals to MC equals to price equals to AR. Here, as the price is given to the farm, so AR equals to price equals to MR. Whatever farm wants to supply will be at given price. So 1 unit of increase in sale will increase just price amount of revenue. So AR and AR is also given equals to price. So where the shortened output of the farm will be decided, farm will decide shortened output at the situation as the first order condition of the optimality or optimization of profit of the farm, that is maximization of profit by the farm will be at where P equals to MR equals to AR equals to MC. And now in the next figure we will show the equilibrium here. So in a competitive setup, farm will be equilibrium where horizontal price line or average revenue line demand curve is equals to MC. This equilibrium at point A, where MC will crosses the MR curve or AR curve, is unique equilibrium and it's a stable equilibrium. Unique means MC and MR curve or AR curve to each other at one point of time, one time at A, so it's a unique and stable, because if we move from Q star, this is the output corresponding to point A, to the left or right, then there is tendency always to move towards Q star. For example, if we are here Q1 at 7, what will happen? Here AR is greater than, revenue is greater than cost, marginal revenue greater than marginal cost or average cost. So we want to move further to have more profit, and we increase output, and this will continue till the point A will be reached or output Q star will be reached. Similarly, if I am here at Q2, say at 9 output level, then marginal cost is greater than marginal revenue, so firm will make loss. So firm tries to reduces output, and this will continue till the gap between MC and AR decreases to 0 at A, and here output reduces up to 8. So this equilibrium is stable equilibrium, and this equilibrium will be drawn on the basis of perfectly competitive setup of the market, demand curve, AR curve, and neoclassical frame of the AC, MC, ABC. But here at the equilibrium, firm may lose or gain. Now suppose I am here, competitive firm in a profit position. That means if price is at say 40, AR equals to MR equals to price, then from MC curve will crosses the AR equals to MR curve at point A, and output is at Q star equals to 8. Now, what is the total revenue earned by the firm by producing Q star, selling Q star amount of output? So this is the unit MR or AR, and this multiplied by OQ star is the amount of output, is P into Q, total revenue. So total revenue here, this amount, and for producing this amount of output, firm will have to incur this amount of cost, which is average cost multiplied by output produced. So this is the amount of profit, and this whole area is amount of, this is the amount of cost, and this whole area is the amount of revenue. So gap between the two, A, B, C, D, is the amount of profit earned by the firm by producing Q star amount of output at price 40. So there is profit. This profit is supernormal profit, which is above the cutoff level or 0 unit of amount of economic profit, or this 0 economic profit includes the marginal expenses or marginal cost of the firm. So here firm earns supernormal profit over the 0 profit, or 0 profit implies accounting cost plus managerial cost. And again, this equilibrium is at point A is stable equilibrium, but there is a possibility also that firm can make losses. Here in this slide, we have given 3 figures. First one is related to the supernormal profit, second one is related to the 0 profit, and third one is related to the loss made by the firm. So what is the difference here? In the first figure, total revenue earned by the firm, this amount should be greater than this amount of cost incurred by the firm. So as total revenue greater than total cost, so there is a positive profit, and profit amount is A, B, C, D, and this is the supernormal profit. But Here in the second figure, total revenue earned by the firm is just equals to total cost incurred by the firm. So there is zero profit. And third one is total cost incurred by the firm, whole amount is greater than total revenue earned by the firm. So here in the third part, total revenue is less than total cost. So there is net loss by the firm, incurred by the firm. So one thing you should note here, if price line equals to MR equals to AR line above the minimum point of AC or ATC curve, then definitely firm in the short run firm will earn positive profit, supernormal profit. Whereas if price line it just touches to the minimum point of ATC or AC, then firm will just get zero profit and no supernormal profit, no loss. Whereas if price line passes below the minimum point of average cost curve or average total cost curve, then firm must incur loss. So among these three picture, we have to just think that depending on price line, fixed price line in the perfectly competitive setup in the short run, firm will make either profit or zero supernormal profit or zero profit or loss. So if there is positive profit, firm will continue production. If there is normal profit or zero supernormal profit, then also there is no problem for the firm to continue production. But if firm makes losses, then there is a question whether firm will continue its production or not. So we will now concentrate on the third figure where firms are making losses, and elaborately we can explain here in the next figure with the thinking that firm will continue its production or not depending on whether P less than average cost or not. If P less than average cost, then there is a negative profit. So we will elaborate this in the next figure. Here we are concentrating only in the case where firm in the short run makes losses. So here, as I said earlier, if price line is below the minimum point of average cost or average total cost line, then firm makes losses. And here, if price line is here, net loss is A, B, C, D amount. So question here, whether firm will continue production in the short run or not. If firm wants to continue production, then what is needed? Firm must recover or earn from the production or sale the amount of fixed cost they have to incur whether the firm is producing or stop production, and definitely the variable cost if the firm continues the production. So here the gap between, we know already from earlier analysis, the gap between ATC or AC and ABC is nothing but the average fixed cost, and there is specific properties of the average fixed cost. With the increase in output, the gap between the two, that is average fixed cost, is reducing, falling. So if we increase output, the gap between AC and ABC is reducing. So with increase in output, average fixed cost is falling. So here, if output level is at Q for simplicity, then what happens, and price is say at P goes to R equals to MR here, then what will happen? There is variable cost, which is Q star to that line, incurred by the firm if firm continues production. And second part is the gap between AC and ABC, which is the average fixed cost. This has two parts. One is A to B, which firm cannot getting or recovering or earning from the production. But the residual part of the average fixed cost is can be earned by the firm if firm continues to production. So what will happen if the price line in between these two curves, AC and BC, then there is a possibility that firm will continue production. Why? Because by continuing production, firm can recover the variable cost of production along with some part of the fixed cost. But if the firm in this situation, if price line is in between AC and ABC, then if firm stop production, then what will happen? The firm cannot earn the fixed cost amount. Even he has to incur this fixed amount until he left out from the business. So if it continues production, then only this part is deficit. But if firm stop production, then the whole amount of average fixed cost is the deficit amount incurred by the firm, the loss amount incurred by the firm. So it is better for the firm to continue production if the price line is in between AC and FAC. So even the firm in the short term make losses. So the decision is here: if P greater than ADC, firm making profit; if P less than ABC, firm making loss. So if making loss, again, what happen? Firm will continue production or firm will shut down temporarily. If firm will get the price line, as I already said in the earlier figure, if price in between ABC and AC, as said earlier in the figure, if price line is in between AC and ABC, then firm should continue production. Or if not, if P less than ABC, then firm should shut down. Why? I will explain here. Here, if price below that, then firm cannot cover this amount of fixed cost. If price reduces to up to below where the price line is less than minimum point of ABC, then what will happen? Firm will not cover any amount of fixed cost. Not only that, firm cannot cover full amount of variable cost also in continuing production. So if it stop production, then at least this amount of variable cost, which is not recovered by the firm during production, cannot be incurred. Only fixed cost can be incurred if it stop production when price below the minimum point of ABC. So this will explain here in this figure. Again, if price line, say price is below the 17.8, which is the C, then firm will stop production. So this should be the shutdown point, below which firm will not produce anything. If firm will produce at price below 7.8, then what will happen? Firm cannot cover fixed cost amount along with the variable cost also. So it is better for the firm to stop production. So firm will shut down at point A where price below A where firm price is less than minimum point of ABC. So this has given here, P should be less than, this is minimum ABC, not ABC. P should be less than minimum ABC and firm will shut down production. Now the second part is, if firm continuous production, even making loss. So P must be at least equals to P equals to ABC, minimum of ABC, below which there is no possibility of production. So if we want to know what should be the supply curve of the firm in the short run, then the starting point of the production should be here, where P equals to ABC, below which no production will happen, firm will shut down. But if price equals to ABC or more, then firm will supply something, because at each and every price above and equals to P, ABC, minimum ABC, then there is equilibrium by the firm for each and specific crossing point of MC curve and price line. So there is each and every point of yellow line MC, there is a price and there is equilibrium. There is price and equilibrium. So each and every point of ABC, for each and every price there is equilibrium, and firm will supply at least different amount for each and every price. So this is the supply curve by the firm. And again one should note that there is a yellow line also, which implies firm supply residual part of the supply curve is here. But what is the explanation of that? If price below ABC, then firm will not supply anything. So it can be concluded as, if firm, this is the minimum point of ABC, this is the starting point of production, below which there is shutdown. So firm supply curve is part of the rising MC above the minimum point of ABC. So this should be the amount, this is the short-term supply curve of the firm. So short-term supply curve is the rising part of MC, which is the minimum point of ABC. Now I should go some other points related to the short-term equilibrium of the firm. If anyhow production cost increases, what will happen? And definitely production cost increase, it may be from the variable cost, it may be from the fixed cost. If there is fixed cost, then there is some change on the intercept of the production, starting point of ABC. That is, if there is fixed cost, change in fixed cost, then there may be a change of minimum point of variable cost and minimum point of AC. If fixed cost changes, then gap between the two changes. But the minimum point of ABC will not change till the variable cost will not change. So the starting point of supply curve will not change till the variable cost will not change. Okay? So here, if the variable cost changes, then MC should increase. If it is increases cost, then MC increase upward by that amount, and for which, if this is price line, the equilibrium of the firm shifts to us left with the new MC and new old or given MR curve or AR curve. Similarly, if anyhow production cost reduces, then MC curve shifts right and no increase. Definitely, there are some cases also by which we can say that there is change of cost of production. And now lastly, for this class, I will explain the short-run supply curve of industry. Up to now, we got the short-run supply curve of firm. If there is n number of firms, suppose here in this figure there are 3 firms. So there is 3 MC curve, and this MC curve, only the supply curve, that is rising part of MC curve, which is above the minimum point of ABC curve. So as there are 3 firms only in the market, so the horizontal sum of the supplies by all 3 firms at each and every price, if we add them horizontally, then we have the market supply curve. Here at P1, MC3 or supply curve of firm 3 will supply that amount. But firm 1 and firm 2 will not supply anything because their minimum point is above. If it is P2 price, then first firm will supply up to that, second firm will supply up to that, and third firm will supply up to that. Sorry, first firm will supply up to that, second firm will supply up to that, third firm will supply up to that. So if we add all these 3, we can get this amount of supply, 15 amount. So at P1 there is 1 firm who can supply firm 3. So this is the part of supply. But at P2 all 3 firms are joined with firm 3. So supply amount changes to that. And after that at P3 they all firm will increase their supply. First firm sold at price only 2, but at P3 it will supply 4, so supply increases. Similarly, firm 2 will supply at P2 5 unit, but at P3 it is 7 unit. So with increase in price, all the firms in the industry increase supply and thereby market supply increases. So what will happen? Market supply curve is the horizontal sum of the all firm supply curve, and I will explain you in the next class. The slope of the market supply is flatter than slope of the individual firm, and elasticity is different, and I will explain those in the next class. And in the second part of the class, I will also continue for the long run. Okay, thank you.